And then hey, yeah. Yeah, you can see that. Yeah. I mean, when the provost comes in, he knows the survey is working, he approved it, so he was surprised. I understand. Yeah. You can just run by. Yeah. I appreciate that. Yeah. It's not going to get we get all of this. We won't. For the general practice meeting.
That's one.
She's just asking, she has to be early with that. One thing. But also you will hear it. Yeah. And one thing the proposal. Oh, you know, yeah. I think it'll be just fine. One thing he will say, I could write down staff. If you have questions, don't hesitate to email. Even if you can't.
I contact with you, that's why that time is right. General faculty meeting, yeah, I would ask you two, one is minor, but one is prospects. So I can follow up on the general faculty meeting. I do want to add, can
Let's hold them and then distribute them for you. Did Henry Reed get back to you? Soon she's coming. I haven't heard from her in the last little bit, so if not, we'll have more room. More time.
I think I should do the technology and maybe also work with the school center, you know, for entrepreneurship. Yeah, and innovation is also going to go training.
Yeah.
For these people that technology. So if there is no additional.
So with this, like, looking at
Yeah, makerspace. I want to know what I described in the questions you have.
I think, you know, we're coming from that conversation, President. This is. So.
But it's really back to the student center. So, because you have, it's called, and then the what, to know exactly, and that's what it is.
Activity, there's,
Yeah, it's not, you know, doing. There is intentions related to Yeah, Brian. It's right there. Yeah. Now, people, obviously. Can I do read?
Sorry about that. Started. Welcome, everybody, to our April Faculty Senate meeting. So grateful to have you here. We are excited about our agenda and the many things we have to discuss. We're going to hear some really good reports from the work of committees and task forces. So it's a great way to end our academic year, sort of. And we'll talk about a possible way to do a little business in May nearer to the end of the meeting. But for the most part, this will be our final Senate official meeting. Let's go ahead and do roll call.
Alan? Proxy? Stanford? Bellin? Boyd?
Here.
Brandenburg? Paramanica?
Here.
Carmack?
Here.
Chang? Council?
I'm passing.
Cuomo? Here. Doms?
Here.
Davis?
Here.
Dutt?
Here.
Dyer? Edelman?
Here.
Elias? Evans? Green? Griffin?
Here.
Hadley? Hampton?
Here.
Hester? Jansen? Yara Pasmino? Han?
Here.
Kozaks? Gavin Lee?
Yeah.
Sungwon Lee?
Here.
Maggiano? Mason?
Here.
Matthews? McLean?
Here.
Moon? Morales?
Here.
Olivieri Parker?
Here.
Harry?
Here.
Phillips?
Here.
Riker?
Here.
Roberts?
Here.
Rollins?
Here.
Song?
Here.
That's quorum. Shepherd?
Here.
Shin?
Here.
Swift?
Here.
Sykes?
Here.
Talbot?
Here.
Waters? Weber?
Spotmeyer for Weber.
Way?
Here.
Wentz?
Here.
Wofford? And Yang?
Here.
Thank you.
Thank you all so much for being here. It is a beautiful day, but it might be a day better observed through a window because it's kind of cold and breezy. So appreciate that we have windows. Thank goodness. On the minutes front, they've been approved already electronically. Thank you all for that. We're going to move to our administrative reports, get right into them. We'll start with our President Kelly, and then move to the provost.
Afternoon, everybody. You'll forgive me, we have a Board of Regents meeting on, well, Monday and Tuesday for me. So I have a financial meeting that I'm gonna have to leave this meeting to go for that prep meeting. I figured I would give you a legislative update because now session is over. You can tell because we're so happy that session is over. I'm gonna give you 3 updates, all of which are not new to you, but once the governor signs them, they will go into action. First is the raises for all state employees that were 4% with a $3,000 cap. Those came through the Senate and are sitting on the governor's desk. We do anticipate that he's going to sign that since that raise was his idea and came out in his budget. Second, we did finish money for the demolition of anthropology. That was, well, the USG received a number of dollars for demolitions across the state, and it is a priority of the state legislature right now to decrease the number of state buildings that are out of date or are of little utility. And you recall, anthropology is the largest energy suck on the entire university campus, but certainly among the academic buildings. That will be a building that goes away during 2024, but it'll probably be toward the fall. The first to go will be Tyus. And then finally, as it relates specifically to UWG, we were able to secure all of the construction money for the renovation of Pafford. That construction won't start until probably January 1st or thereabouts. Once classes are done in the fall semester, there'll be a transition over from the humanities construction site to the Pafford site. And I suspect, bear in mind that humanities was supposed to be done last July. We do not expect the same delays in Pafford. I say that because we already started ordering the parts that the supply chain had slowed humanities for, which were primarily around infrastructure, boilers and chillers and air handlers and things like that. Although somehow doors got on the list too, with 104-week wait time to get doors. We have to buy different types of doors. So all of those things are going to happen. We also had the $66 million that was removed by the Senate in the last session, which resulted in about a $2.3 million budget reduction for us, which ended up being a $1.6 million budget restoration. I'm not a mathematician, but that is less than what we were reduced, even though we were fully recovered, but that's the nature of the USG. That has been restored. We do anticipate we will get more than $1.6 million restored in the fiscal year 25 budget. But it will not be the same amount as we were reduced in the fiscal year 23. That's just the nature of state government. I don't think I'm missing anything else that is pertinent across the board at the end of legislative session. Is that true, Sarah? With that, and I know Dr. Preston has lots of things to present, so I don't want to take up too much time, but are there any questions from anyone on any subject?
This is a question about enrollment. There was an NPR item yesterday morning, which basically said that because of glitches in the FAFSA nationwide, there are 500,000 fewer students about to enter college in the fall of 2024. That might be concerning nationwide, but I wanted you please to go ahead and comment on what the impact might be at the University of West Georgia. Second, what they were saying is that there are many colleges nationwide where college staff are taking part in activities that help students who have difficulty filling out FAFSA somehow fill out FAFSA. So my second part of that is, how can faculty members help? Should West Georgia have a process like that to help students in the region? Thank you.
I'm so glad you brought this up, Dr. Khan. It is a huge issue. It is not glitches. It is a train wreck. I say that because the Congress passed a legislation that forced the simplification of the FAFSA. And they gave an end date, which was December 31st, 2023, for the Department of Education to implement that simplified FAFSA. Now, we knew, probably last July or August, that they weren't gonna make that day. They were legally obligated to bring out something. But Leanne, Hussey, who is our Director of Financial Aid, has done a remarkable job. She had said throughout the fall, she didn't think they were gonna make that date, and no other responsible professional in that area thought they were gonna make that date, and they didn't. They did release a simplified FAFSA, but it doesn't correlate. Here's when the term glitch, I listened to the same piece from NPR. But the term glitch is too small. Problem is that you have about 2/3 of students, it might be 1/3, I might have them transposed, but I believe it's 2/3 of students where their financial data coming from the IRS does not match up to their profile on their FAFSA. So if you package an award, you may be packaging them incorrectly. If we package them incorrectly and we give students too much funding, the Department of Education will hold us liable for that later. So we are waiting. I'll tell you what UWG's specific situation is right now. We are one of 19 instances of banner in the USG that go through commonly held at the USG. We have our own instance, but it's held at the USG and ITS. They are doing a patch to banner. This is pretty regular that we be doing that time of year because it's very sophisticated software. That patch isn't going to be opening up that system to us to package financial aid for, I believe, a week. And I did get briefed by Leanne yesterday on this subject. We are currently testing our systems with the FAFSAs that have been filled out. We are ahead of most institutions in the number of FAFSAs we have filled out, but that still puts us probably 32% behind. And wish Leanne was here because she'd have specific numbers where we would be in a normal year. I don't think we'll actually start packaging until the first week of May. That does put us significantly behind. And it is correct. There are students across the United States that had not filled out the FAFSA. But quite frankly, even if they did, and my son Kieran is going to college. He starts his first year of college in the fall. And we've already gone through that process. We would be beta tested the federal government with the Kelly plan just to see how it worked. And that didn't turn out as well as we would have wanted to. So we've had to go back and get into the portal multiple times to kind of do all of the fixes, and still Georgia Tech has not taken action on that. So everybody's in the same boat right now. There's a little bit of variability in when people are packaging financial aid and putting it out onto the street. We feel like we're still in a really good place. I will tell you that NPR kind of throws them all into one bucket. The Atlantic brought out an article earlier this week on the same subject. So if you want to look that up, I believe theirs had a little more provocative title, like higher education is headed for a train wreck or something like that. But I say that because they're putting all universities into one bucket. And I think we all know we are a state university and a state comprehensive university. That is a different student than somebody who might apply to a private college in Pennsylvania. But we're all being put into the same bucket. So we're in control of our situation. We probably have the best professional you can get in the South leading financial aid. Leanne, I think I mentioned last month, is the president-elect of the Southern Association of Financial Aid Directors. Which is why she's actually been in Washington, working with both the Department of Education and in particular with Chairwoman Fox's staff on this particular subject. Two have met with the Department of Education. We'll have a meeting with them again next week in Washington, D.C. And there is a sense of urgency around it. I will tell you that because I serve on the board of one of the 6 educational associations in higher education, the White House called us yesterday asking for a survey of what exactly is happening across the country on campuses and who's packaging financial aid. We gave those responses and supplied them, or responses, gave them and supplied them to the White House this morning. We wouldn't have gotten that inquiry if there wasn't I think some energy that's about to be put behind the Department of Education to get this resolved. It is a big deal. It is a really big deal. Now, to your last question of what can faculty do to help? When was the last time you filled out a FAFSA?
4 years ago, my daughter did.
And that, are you still having nightmares about that experience?
She took care of most of it. I gave her a password.
All right, good. Fantastic. Well, bless your daughter. That's wonderful. There's a lot of people that struggle through that. We have a lot of resources around that to help people fill out FAFSAs. We do a lot of proactive kind of corrective. We're going to walk you through that experience. Even the simplified FAFSA is a difficult tool to fill out. So we've had those that type of support in place for a number of years and do a lot of outreach to students. I mean, we part of the Momentum Center is we have that small computer lab in the Momentum Center simply so that we can stand right behind a student and help them through that type of experience.
Thank you very much.
And if there is a solution where we need all hands on deck to go and help people and it would actually work, we would call everybody in to make that work. But we're just not there yet. It's a great question. That's a big deal. Sorry, I didn't mention it myself. Others? Fantastic. Thank you all. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everybody. Say congratulations on a successful semester. As Jeff indicated, we're not there yet, but we've just got a couple more weeks left in the spring term and then final exams, and looking forward to celebrating students' graduation with you all. I want to start by, as I did last month, looking at the agenda. We've got, if you went through all of the readings for today's agenda, 497. This is up. This has got to be a record. So I think you all are capturing a lot of the work of the year, and we've got a pretty robust agenda, not only from UPC and GPC, which are our regular, big agenda items, but also some fabulous work on the subcommittees. This is, I know we'll have probably something in May, maybe a shortened faculty senate meeting, but I want to take this time to thank Laura and Jeff and all of the committee chairs for the work that you've done, all of the faculty senators who've done really good work in talking through items and working through a lot of great work this past year. I'll echo President Kelly and say on the FAFSA item, what can we as UWG faculty and staff do to maybe overcome this hurdle, continue to be excellent. I filled out with my daughter and son the FAFSA, so I got 2 this year. The simplified version is still a bit annoying, and it does take some time, but it is shortened, so that's a good thing. But I'll share that anytime we have to do some kind of work like that, the goal and the destination is what makes it worth it. And I think our academic programs and the excellence that all the faculty and staff breed into UWG make that FAFSA process worth it for sure. So I would add to that, keep doing great work and investing in and telling those stories, investing in students. I do have a couple of updates. I appreciate the Faculty Senate Executive Committee and some of the notes and questions that you all shared, but I'm going to start with SAC-COC. We had a fantastic visit last week. Thank you to everyone who've done, I'll really say 5 years worth of work, right? That is not just a 1-week effort. That is a multi-year effort where we come together and we document that we are meeting all of those standards. We had a great offsite visit last fall. We answered those elements that they addressed. And then the on-site last week, everyone received tremendous compliments from the visiting team. The investment, the community, the excellence in meeting those standards. So I'm not going to let the cat out of the bag officially because we're still waiting on that official response, but we had a great visit, and I think everyone will be very happy with the results that we will be sharing soon.
Dr. President, so could you just share unofficial
results? The unofficial results were no recommendations. Yes. And I'll say, that language sounds a little odd. What do you mean? we got a lot of compliments, but no recommendations means that the board will meet in December and vote officially to ratify the on-site committee's evaluation. And then we will receive the official finding in writing in January of 2025, which will be here before we know it. But again, kudos to everyone involved in that process, not just in hosting, but then all of the preparation and the work that you do. So fantastic job. So no recommendations is the best outcome that we could possibly find. So a couple of items that came up in questions. The first is the graduate funding and the graduate assistantships. There's some numbers and some data that are shared out. I'll say that from going back to FY22 to FY24 and going into this upcoming year, there's only been a 4% change in the amount of funding that's going in to support the graduate endeavor. At the same time, we've had significant growth in our graduate programs. So yes, we've gone through that process, and I know this was a topic that came up at the last Faculty Senate and is certainly of interest to everyone involved in that. The funding remains consistent. Where it's being delivered is shifting in supporting those areas that are growing. I've shared with Faculty Senate and in individual meetings that we need to be investing in spaces that are growing, give others some runway and some time to turn that around and to grow or to sustain. And that's our continued process there. So I think it was around 850 in the past. It's right at 800,000 right now. The next item that came up is about the library. The SAC COC was a part of this question, and I'll share that the SAC COC committee, the visiting team, again, found no recommendations, no deficiencies in our standard. So if you are having trouble, given the shift in ways of accessing the library materials and the things that you need, please reach out to CJ and to others in the library. You're welcome to connect with me. I think I shared top of that list. My academic discipline was one of those that was taken away. Talked about this 2 or 3 months ago, but I still have full access to that material myself. So if you are running into challenges there, please reach out to me or to CJ or to others. Happy to figure out where should you be going to get immediate access to that. And if there are delays that are impacting your ability to do scholarship, if the new access and the new ability is just not fast enough for you, happy to work through that and make sure that you're getting quick and full access to the materials that you need. The final one that I'd like to dive into is really this question around academic viability, academic program viability. About a month ago, on the 8th of March, I sent out letters to each of the deans talking about programs that were not meeting that University System of Georgia standard. They do a 3-year rolling average for enrollment and degrees awarded in every academic program. The current standard is 3 at the doctoral level. So every year you need an average across 3 years of 3 degrees produced for a doctoral level program, 5 at the master's level, and 10 at the undergraduate. I've shared previously in Faculty Senate and other meetings that there's been informal conversation at the system office about raising that standard and doubling it. But please let me clarify that that is not imminent. It's an idea. So if you have anxiety about your program, maybe it's producing 18 students and you think at the undergraduate level, and you think, well, you know, gosh, if they double that, we've got to address that. Let me clarify that that is an idea that's been discussed from a viability perspective, but it's not currently implemented. So that standard of 3, 5, and 10 is what we're looking at across the board. Because of that, we have a number of programs that for many years have been below those thresholds. And I have advocated and worked with the deans, worked with faculty on what is the plan and what is our multi-year plan for addressing that. And we've got some really good work. I had a great conversation, I think it was about 2 weeks ago, with geology and geography. Those faculty came together and talked about the changes. I commended the Faculty Senate and the UPC last month on some of the changes to the mathematics program, and looked at the graduate in accounting, needing to add some analytics elements to that to modernize and be more market friendly and drive more students into some of these programs. So it's not just based on that threshold, but it's also about that distinctiveness and that competitiveness as part of our strategic plan. Every one of our academic programs needs to be constantly evolving. And that continuous improvement cycle, we don't wait for SACs every 10 years to do an on-site before we say, hey, what are our programs looking at? And you all do a grand job of doing that regular academic program review. That minimum standard, though, does have some of our programs that are not meeting that, and they haven't met them for quite a long time. So it's not you dipped 1 year and then you're back up. This is a sustained decline in some areas that we need to address. And in some of that, we'll be able to combine programs to merge them. We're here in Roy Richards Hall. In Richards College of Business, we have 3 different types of econ degrees, right? So how do we merge those together, perhaps? And then in their totality, they look much stronger than if they were individual. The BA and the BFA in art, right? We've got new BFA degrees. And if we look at the statistics about the number of students coming into that BA in art, it's tremendous. We have nearly 200 students, and yet that program, most of those students are transferring into the BFA. And so the BFA looks very healthy, but that BA in art, even though it only, even though it's got 200 students coming in, it's not graduating above that minimum 10 threshold. So the charge letters that went out to the deans, and I know that they've been working with the faculty, have identified, and I'll share this with the faculty senate so that you've got a written record of this. There's a number of degrees that have been identified as either not meeting that threshold for 2 or more years, more long-term, those that have recently been added to that are now underperforming below that threshold, and what is our plan? And then those that are trending down towards that. And we're addressing all of those very locally. If there are specific questions about academic programs, happy to address them in a Q&A here. But I wanted to give you a clarification that we're not, that new threshold of 6, 10, and 20 is not in effect. And we have not been given any guidance that will go into effect. That's just been an idea floated. My goal is working across the institution, working with the USG on investing in and growing these programs rather than in sunsetting them. But for any program where the faculty are looking at that and there is a determination that they're not viable, that we need to stop admitting students and teach those out, that's not an overnight proposition. We'll have many conversations around that. Those letters that have gone out to deans, the deans have already been in discussion with those faculty. And any student that's currently here in those programs will absolutely be able to graduate under that catalog that they came in. And we will make sure that they are graduating with that degree. It's only the trend that we need to address. And I hope that clarifies that. Still more work to do, but again, the bulk of that is in, let's invest in these programs and grow them. The last thing that I have, and I think we've got a considerable amount of time in the agenda today, is to talk about the College of Mathematics, Computing, and Science and the working group there. Kudos to those that have been working on that. The College of Arts, Humanities, and Social Sciences, so CACSI moving into those 2 new colleges, and the Institute for Mental Health and Wellness. We've got 3 working groups that have been doing some tremendous work, talking with and listening, doing a lot of listening work and getting input. You've got a summary that we'll share in a bit that gives a high-level description of some of the DNA that is going into those. And we'd like to open this up for the next 2 weeks or so for comment. When we come together at the general faculty meeting at the end of the month, we'll present a newer version of that based on the comments we've received. And then we'll do a bit of work over the summer because we're going to be operationalizing them. But no surprises, right? We're not going to change substantively from what you see presented in that general faculty meeting on the 26th in 2 weeks. With that said, I do want to make sure you've got that on your calendar, 2 o'clock on the 26th. Look forward to joining with you and celebrating a very successful academic year. Last data point, because you know I'm a data nerd, I'll say that we are up year over year in enrollments by 4.5% over last year. So we talk about FAFSA, we talk about trends in higher education. UWG is doing a fabulous job of attracting more students, doing a great job in our academic programs, and that's certainly showing by the students that are coming here. So kudos for a great year. Congratulations. Look forward to celebrating on the 26th. That said, happy to take questions. Yes.
Dr. Preston, I'm kind of butting in because I have to leave at 2:15 p.m.
Certainly.
I have lots of questions about the new science college structure
Great.
that we received. But I'll ask only 2 questions today. Number 1 is an easy question. Could you clarify the role of the makerspace manager?
Yeah, so makerspace is, we've got the garage, right? WIT team does a great job. If you haven't been in that space, I encourage you to. We've really got 2 sides to that. One is the safer area where you can come in and use 3D printers and laser cutters and LEDs and do some really fabulous work. The other is more that industrial side, and definitely need someone there to make sure that there's safety involved and you've been properly trained. It's really interdisciplinary. So a makerspace by design is open for the broader community. It should be anyone can come in and enjoy the materials and think and create and connect with. And I think as we were talking right before, connecting that to the Stone Center for Family Business Entrepreneurship and Innovation, Stone Center is fabulous in working across the institution. So that makerspace should be the same, even though this is housed in the College of Math, Computing and Science, it's really open to all in the same way that the Stone Center is. So I hope that we will expand that. Looking at the Visual Arts Building and all of the 3D printers and the great resources that are there in the same way that faculty and students and staff should be able to connect with and work with those. This is institution-wide resources, and that makerspace will be the garage and be open to all.
So I'm from biology, so we do have inventions in biology, like a new strain of bacteria, which can be patented. So has the leadership thought about the biological aspect or chemical biology aspect of inventions that can be tied?
Probably not in that makerspace, right? But
Yeah.
So I think we've got an update coming about intellectual property and putting some more clarity in supporting faculty and students and staff that are creating inventions, whether it's in biology or in theater or in education. All of these materials, a healthy IP policy is going to allow us to help the revenue that is invented, create the legal and the structure around that. That's not my expertise, but in the same way, you might have a great invention, but then how can the institution and the research corporation give you resources to commercialize and monetize, and then that revenue come back to the inventors as much as possible.
And can we talk about one other, we don't have a makerspace, that's just kind of where we start. There's no reason why we can't have 10 that do different things and concentrate on different things. I hope that's where we go.
I hope so too.
Great point.
And my second question, the last question for today, it's a little bit complex, so I have to give you some context first.
Okay.
So I'm looking at the structure, the figure, the diagram that we received, the Center for Student Success and Experiential Learning. And there will be 3 specialists, 1 for computing and math, the SS and EL specialist, 1 for biology, and SS and EL specialist 2 for chemistry, geosciences, physics. Now, we know the general job description for these specialists. One of the critical responsibility would be to reach out to employers in diverse STEM sectors, ranging from industry, government, professional schools, nonprofit organizations, and so on, getting the information that what courses, what knowledge will prepare the students and also the skills, the hands-on skills they need to prepare for a successful career post-graduation. And this person, whoever is going to be in charge, should not only share this information with the students, but should reach out to the program faculties, program lab coordinators, even the makerspace manager, and the research clusters that you're going to have interdisciplinary research cluster. And the second thing is, this is really, I'm excited about this college structure, science structure, and I'm excited to be part of it in the future.
That's good. I'm glad.
Yeah, the science cluster, directed by faculties, having centers is great. But the students are going to do research, right, in these centers, and maybe postdocs if research, permitting the research grants,
Absolutely.
money for it. So my Anybody doing experimental science research knows that a student working in a research lab needs to have some basic foundation, ABC of the science. That is relevant to the project they're going to work in.
Sure.
You just cannot come and say, oh, I want to do research, okay? Because the supervisor, the research supervisor can train them to handle equipment, design experiments and so on, but there has to be a pre-existing knowledge. And the knowledge comes from the coursework, the student, in the lecture classroom or in the lab. And experimental science is where you get the most money, research funding, and it's totally interdisciplinary. So it's very clear to me from the structure of the college that we need to have an interdisciplinary STEM curriculum in place. And for that to develop, we need to have cross-talk among different programs. Right now, biology, chemistry, separately, we have faculty meetings, we develop curriculum, we vote on. But that cannot happen in this new college. If you really want to prepare career-ready students, you need that interdisciplinary STEM curriculum, which can be only developed with a proper crosstalk among different components. Program faculty, lab coordinators, makerspace manager, all the 3 specialists, and even the directors of the research clusters. To have a cohesive, communication that will lead to a, modern day 21st century science interdisciplinary curriculum. So has the leadership, this is my question. What are the initiatives? Do you have any clear initiatives that you have in mind to ensure that this kind of crosstalk indeed happens in practice at the campus? And will there be a person, because this is really complex, to oversee this process?
Yeah, so appreciate the backing material, and then the question is a good one. I'm going to tie this into a couple of things. I think if we look at our QEP, which was again well received by the SAC COC committee last week, it's all about that experiential, well, it could be experimental, right?
Yeah.
But that experiential learning that leads into that career readiness. And it's job readiness, but it's really career readiness, because we all know that we're going to pivot many times throughout our careers. So what you're describing is, let's break down these silos, let's break down these barriers. If you look at the work that these working groups have done around the colleges and the institute, it's really about supporting the interdisciplinary connections between disciplines. It's when we touch disciplines together where you have that distinction. For example, my discipline, of course, is computer science, as you know. So if it was just CS alone, it's just a computer on a desk. It's what you do with it, and it's the intersection of art and computing, or it's the intersection of computing and mathematics, or computing and business, where you get this really interesting work. And if the centers themselves, the research clusters embedded in these colleges, and I would encourage all of us to look across the institution at this, are designed for anyone. It's not just a department to say, well, you're at the table because you're in physics, or you're at the table because you're in computer science. But it's all of the faculty that say, I'm really interested in this big grand problem, or I want to contribute my disciplinary expertise into this discussion. And so I don't know that the structure prohibits that. And to your specific question, I wake up thinking about this every day. I go to sleep thinking about this every day. It's the combination of work, and UWG has a very rich history with interdisciplinary studies, and people trying to combine things into doing interesting things. I think we're going to see more of that. And if we look at, I know we've talked about joint appointments and some of the logistics around that in Faculty Senate before. Let's lean into that. We have workloads, and we can say, well, 30% of my time is in this area and 40% is in this area, and then service and so forth. There's a way of defining that. If we look at the new cover sheet for our annual review, it talks about what did you say you were going to do this year, what did you do, and what would you like to do, and what are you proposing for the upcoming year. Let's lean into crafting and saying that we want to project into the future what we're accomplishing and which colleagues we're working with across disciplines. So interdisciplinary science, broadening that to be inclusive of not just individual disciplines, but how do we, I don't know about you, but I don't know of a student that graduates and just does one thing for the rest of their life. And then having multiple perspectives and multiple disciplines is really what sets them apart. For my son who's filling out that FAFSA for the first time, I'm encouraging him as a minor, right? Get your major, but then get that minor, because that makes you one of the Avengers, right? Well, these superheroes, very unique.
Yeah, but I hope this initiative will include, what coursework we have in place, what are needed to, for the students to have a successful career, because this is a different time we live in,
Yes.
right?
Well, the curricula is the curricula is the purview of the faculty, right? You all begin and own that content. So if you're seeing adding courses, which we always have in GPC and UPC, what are the courses that we're sunsetting that are no longer relevant? And those are challenging conversations, but certainly conversations that we need to have. If I was still teaching the same course I was teaching in the 90s in computer science, that's not necessarily relevant to 2024.
Could I just respond too, because what you're describing, I love the interdisciplinary crosstalk requirement. I absolutely agree. The structure of a college is a starting point, not an end point. And I hope that all of the time we're kind of looking at work we're doing, going, what's missing? What do we need? Now let's go and fill that in. There's no reason why that couldn't be created today, right? Because it'd be beneficial today if we had the same thing.
What I would just love is, and right now, biology faculties, we are determining our curriculum. What I would like is the open forum for chemistry, physics, math, computer science faculty, the cross sections.
Yeah.
To be involved in the curriculum development. So biology's curriculum or chemistry curriculum shouldn't be solely their business. It's if you want an interdisciplinary approach. Right now, we don't have that conversation. That would be nice, and that's why I was thinking, how can we make that happen?
Well, can I share that if you look at the curricula, it comes out of a department, but then it goes up to a college, and then it goes before UPC or GPC. Those are the conversations that we can have from an interdisciplinary perspective. So the agenda items that UPC has reviewed, I hope that you're not just saying, well, that's chem, so that's not my area, or that's theater, so that's not my area. That's an opportunity to say, hold on. We can contribute to this, we can add to this, and we can make it more robust.
But you're talking about the formulation. You're talking about ground floor discussion and curriculum.
Because, right now we have faculty meetings, right, in biology to vote on curriculum issues and discuss curriculum. Why not because these research clusters, it will be you need that relevant coursework in place. So there has to be a communication among these different parts. And so I want to openly, like we have faculty meeting, we should invite physics faculty, chemistry faculty. If we have a certain course to be developed, where there's a cross section, invite these faculties at the meeting to discuss the curriculum. Right now, we don't have that.
Let me jump in real quick, just because I'm a member of that steering group. I know Greg's here too, but that came through loud and clear in our listening sessions. The importance of having interdisciplinary crosstalk, formulation of curricula, all of that comes through. So I just wanted to signal to you that the org chart will never show communication. It will show where people are located with the structure. But the communication commitment, and Greg, you correct me if I'm wrong, but the communication commitment is very much there. It has to be articulated in this stage we're in now of the steering group, working on that operational piece. But your points are extremely important and well taken, and I know they're in the minds of the steering group as well, because it came through loud and clear from faculty. So building curricula that really do allow students to be prepared to work in this system, this organization, is right on target. And we're gonna be doing that as we develop this out.
Prerequisites are very important.
No doubt. Now,
Like that, then to get a solid foundation in, like a student
Yeah.
working in a research lab.
So I'm gonna let Farouk speak, because he's got his pen wagging, and I know what that means. We're gonna let Farouk speak, but we're gonna have to shift now back to our agenda and then move that to second half.
For today.
But would you do this? Would you please let the steering group know? So Greg's here, you can contact me, any of the people on that document, or all of us. let them know exactly what you said, so we can keep that in mind as we
Sure,
plan.
thank you so much.
Yeah, Farouk, please.
Mr. Chairman, and I'll make my friends online. Mr. Rose, I want to make a very brief comment about QEP and then make a nuanced request as I usually do.
Of course.
Resources, and this time about time as well. Very briefly, it started in a chemistry meeting where we thought about experiential learning as the QEP for the entire university. Professor Geisler, who is about to retire, and then Dr. Newton was a big part of that effort. I was a small part of it. That was the university's QEP. So there are faculty members who have spent their entire career preparing the next generation of professionals in all disciplines. There are two important ingredients to make this successful. One is faculty time, so that they can interact with students one-on-one in essentially all disciplines on our campus. And the second is there are many disciplines, natural science, art, music, where we need resources to make that happen. The president mentioned $1.6 billion. That's wonderful news. So my request to you now would be, as we talk about workload, let's build in real time so that faculty members can actually take part in QEP. Second, please make us write grants. And I'm very happy to say Dr. Mojo would be able to say more about it. There is a team of us that have in a single calendar year submitted 3 federal grants that if they are successful will bring in $1.45 million. Of course, it is the probability factor of 0.1 that we are going to be successful.
We'll take it.
Still, we have to write those grants.
Yes.
My request to you would be, necessarily, in the last couple of years, we had some budget cuts for our supplies and materials. Please restore them. Please consider infusing more money into supplies and money which are discipline specific, so that we can do the important work of working with our students and really make QEP very successful. And this might be the last time I might be asking you for money publicly.
Yeah, keep pushing. I love the advocacy. Thank you. I'm going to pick up on 3 things in your comment there. Number one, the rich experience that students have because of the mentorship of faculty is absolutely essential. Most institutions, if you look at their materials, it'll start, one of the highest points will be the student to faculty ratio, right? That's just a very small data point, but no one's going to put 400 to 1, right? You're not going to brag on that. That's a point of distinction because that gives an indication of what kind of access do I have to my faculty at a place. That's really important, but it's the resources, time and money to be able to pull that off. So those are the other 2 elements of what I heard in your comment. The QEP, as we've discussed in Faculty Senate before, and as we presented to the SAC-COC offsite and the visiting, the onsite team, really leaned into us crowdsourcing this. Not, oh, we'll just make everybody do more work, but it's part of what is distinctive about UWG. We invest in. Every single academic discipline can point to distinct experiences that they provide to students. In year 1, that might be, I'm going to attend an invited lecture from an outside speaker. Our student finance club had a wonderful event 2 weeks ago in TLC where they brought in executives that talked about what is it like in the industry. Faculty can convey that, but then bringing in external voices really corroborates that and deepens that. So in year 2, it might be I'm connecting you to a business that has an R&D project or a nonprofit that wants students to do thought exercise around. And then by year 3 and 4, you've got internships, externships. I'm working on site, leading in. That does take time. I'll share with you, Jeff and Dr. Kelly and I had a great lunch yesterday, a conversation around this, where I shared, I've asked us to do an inventory of all of the institutional, college and school and department level committees that we're asking people to serve on. How many seats are in each of those and how many hours? I know it flexes from time to time, but how many person hours are we asking in totality of our institution and our faculty and service? And my hypothesis is it's probably going to be a 2x factor of how much time, at least from a workload perspective, we ask of people. So we're creating a structure that's really not doable. In the same way, I've asked that we inventory all of the courses across academic program maps how many sections do we need to offer and how many faculty do we have? Do we have to teach seven loads to pull this off? What is our margin there? And I think it's really important for us to look at those data and say, what are the essential works? What committees do we need? What could we sunset? What are some courses that, there are not many students in that we need to consolidate? To the earlier question, what are the new courses? And let's structure that in a way where we have workloads that are humane and provide that space in between where we can have serendipitous conversations with colleagues, with students, and do those things that a year or 5 or 10 are gonna be what we point to and say, oh, remember when we had this brief conversation over coffee and it turned into the 1.4 million in grants that year. We have to create room for that. I'm all for it. And for the 1.6 million that was restored and the growth, there is that 2-year lag in state revenue that we get for enrollment growth. But if you look at the decline in the last 6 years, we've experienced 24% decline in enrollment. I share that 4.5 because it's been hard earned in the last year. And then those dollars will start coming in FY26 and beyond. As we continue to grow, we will have additional dollars to invest. And I appreciate your advocacy. I ask all faculty to do that. I do the same with the president to say we have real needs, but we also need, if we look at that strategic plan and that bullseye, we've got our core work to do that we absolutely have to keep the lights on and pay the bills and do that. But we also need funding and time to do those outer rings of the bullseye and to make sure that people are investing in the next thing. Otherwise, we can be taking care of today, but then we get lapped in 4 or 5 years when others who are investing are leading.
Thank you very much.
Well said.
So we have time for 2 questions from our student visitors, and then we need to move on in the agenda.
Okay, yes.
Progress, you said that one of the goals for our graduate programs this year was to increase competitiveness. So we have this goal, and then UWG also has a commitment to diversity, equity, and inclusion. So I'm here wondering, since your team's decision was to deny incoming PhD students tuition waivers, stipends, and the opportunity for more career readiness by having graduate teaching positions, how does that make our program more competitive? And further, incoming applicants who already have the burden of student loan debt from undergraduate and master's programs, how would they be able to afford our program? Essentially, how can our program survive without this kind of funding?
Sure. So I know that after the last, thank you for the question. After the last faculty senate meeting, similar questions. I think we met with the dean and the dean of the graduate college about funding and making some shifts there. The process was request from programs to the dean, to the graduate school, and then looking at them in totality. So very interested in viability and supporting graduate assistantships. I've had a number of conversations with faculty in the room and across the institution about increasing that. We're looking at a single year and where are we putting those funds to maximize that growth and maximize the input. So happy to kind of dive deeper let's continue the conversation beyond this. Very open to talking about specific situations for individual programs and individual students. But the funding is not completely cut. It might be shifted or reduced on a per program basis, but absolutely committed to continue to fund students. But let's continue to talk.
So actually, I just want to clarify that funding for incoming PhD students is completely cut. They aren't receiving any form of stipend or financial support, which is really exceptional for a PhD program. Additionally, at the last meeting, it was mentioned that whenever the university likes to implement policy changes, you'll use a useful strategy, which I think is intelligent, of looking to another institution which is already utilizing the model that you're proposing. And so I'd like to ask, which institution has a successful PhD program in psychology, which does not offer any form of funding or support for their students? And if you don't know this model, why did you deviate from this policy of looking for already existing model, and how do you justify that deviation?
Sure. So again, thank you for the question. Let's continue the conversation and kind of dive deep. I can't point to a particular program that provides no funding and is successful. I'm confident that they exist because internal funding is not the only source. You've got tuition revenue. We've got undergraduate and graduate programs with robust enrollment, with students paying. the strength of the program defines the demand for it.
Right, however, those are undergraduate and master's programs, which operate very, very differently than a doctoral level program. So I think we need to continue this conversation because I think that answer reflects a lack of understanding of how doctoral programs actually operate.
Yeah, happy to dive deeper with you. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Provost Preston. Dr. Anne Marie Reed, she texted me or emailed us while we were having the meeting that she thought it was next week that we're meeting. So I don't think she's going to make it. If she does, we'll make some time later, but we're going to move on in the agenda and hopefully hear that presentation in our first fall meeting. We look forward to that. It's important, I think, what she has to share. So sorry that didn't work out. We're now going to turn some time over to task force representatives and committee chairs to report on a few tasks they've been working on. We're going to start with our intellectual property representatives, Dr. Beth Shepard and Brian Mosier, who will present on their work. Thanks.
Hello, on behalf of our committee, which included Christy Carmen, Robert Griffiths, Katie Morales, Robert Jensen, and the two of us, we're very honored to have represented you on this task force. We have to report that we believe on Monday, the intellectual property policy that is campus-wide will go live in the legal module for comment and review. Those comments will actually, after 2 weeks, come back to our committee. So we'll be able to interact with and see those comments. They're not just going to go into space. The committee has not completed its work with coming up with the document. In addition, we have a bonus policy. Since we were talking about intellectual property, many universities have open access policies where the faculty essentially pinky swear to share copies of their published works in a repository. We here at West Georgia have a brand new institutional repository, and we're going to talk a little bit about that. That policy will eventually go to rules, which will then come to this committee for vote. And so that will happen in the fall. So two pieces. One is a campus-wide committee that goes through legal. The other piece will be the open access policy, which will come through to faculty. All right. So this is what the repository looks like. We have it. It exists. It has some value for faculty. We can share our scholarship. We can have some conversation by seeing what our colleagues are doing. The documents in the repository have permanent links, so we can embed them and share them with one another. We can put them in resumes because it is outside of the firewall or the open access. Because it is outside of the Open Athens net ID system, you can actually share them beyond West Georgia, and anybody can access it. People from community, your colleagues at other institutions can share these documents. We're going to offer professional cataloging and metadata. It is free. There's no cost to you. And there are some rudimentary statistics. If you've got a promotion portfolio, we can kind of draw a few basic statistics out of it. Students too can post items, and we can have an archive for serial publications or other materials. I had wondered whether or not we should, since they're 400 and 700 pages long, have an archive where we actually post the faculty minutes so that they're easily searchable. It meets the open access for some grants. It's customizable. We can create special fields for special searches. This is a site I created for the upcoming research conference, the Student Research Conference. We're going to post some of the student papers in it.
My slide then.
This is your slide.
All right, very good. This is really exciting work that has been great funded, and just kudos to the library for the work that they've done in developing this repository that Dr. Mitra speaks to another mechanism for interdisciplinary work where you can access these materials together. But if you look at this, here are just a couple of ideas. So certainly we can archive our collections, and but this also gives us an opportunity to reach out to community that may also need some support in collecting their data. It provides an opportunity to sponsor that and actually grow this data repository to much larger than it currently is. It also gives us the opportunity for our students to have these experiential learning opportunities whereby they may help a community collaborator, a nonprofit, to then find a way to secure and to store data that they may not have the opportunity to do. So it provides more than one opportunity for us as faculty, our students, but then also our community partners.
IP, when you upload something into the repository, you're essentially giving a non-exclusive license to the university to distribute it, but all of your copyright stays, your right of authorship stays with you. You're not doing anything other than saying, yes, we give the university an opportunity to have this in the repository. If your articles are a published work and your publisher is giving you fits, I have the ability to go in and embargo it, which means in the system, I can catalog it, I can upload it, but then make it non-visible to anybody. So that like when copyright finally, or your publisher finally says it's okay, 8 years from now, we can make it go live. So you can deposit it with confidence. Again, it's a basic search. We're eventually going to link it to the Georgia Knowledge Repository and the Ingram Library Catalog. So items in the repository will actually pull up in our catalog when you do a basic library catalog search. Where to find it? Here it's at the URL, and where the star is on the library website, that is the link. You can link right there. You can contribute by having me upload something for you, or if you want, I can create a username and password to allow you to update and upload yourself. Questions? Yes.
One of my colleagues has a question on this. And the question is, are we required to upload our information to this repository?
From the open access policy that will, right now, you're not required. We welcome materials, but once the open access policy comes into effect, you're going to kind of promise to try to upload your items. And if you need a waiver, we will provide a waiver.
Transfer PCM conference. So those cases, we want to upload our work, we probably have to request.
Yeah, the library can help you with that. I can write to publishers on your behalf. I also have access to a database called Sherpa Romeo, where many top science journals have indicated whether or not they will allow things to go into open repositories. So you can contact me and I can help you work through that. We can also work with legal here to see if we can't negotiate licenses at the point when articles are submitted so that something can be maybe in a pre-publication version uploaded to the repository.
Make one statement, I'm from biology, experimental science. So we have open access journals where we publish. So that should not be a problem because we have ResearchGate, which is where we upload our published paper routinely, no problem of copyright or anything. Because they charge you such a big fee for publishing in an open access journal, so it's free access.
Right. You know, we don't want to add to your burden. So if something is already in an open access repository, you don't have to deposit it here, although it would be nice because it would be the collection of everything West Georgia.
Yeah, that's good. These are good initiatives, right?
All right. Yes.
Sure, I recently suggested digital commons. Have you ever thought about using digital commons as a system so that we can even post journals? Not only just record it, everything others.
Yeah. Yeah, this particular platform is a little limited. I can't do new publications, but if something is already published or is already formatted, I can upload it into this static repository. So if there have been series of journals here in the past, and I know there are some that are alive, I can actually create a section for the journal, and I can actually upload all of the titles or all the issues and volumes very easily.
I strongly recommend you to look at the State University Digital Commons website.
Yeah, well, they use a different platform. They use a platform called bPress at Kennesaw State. We actually didn't have a whole lot of I actually funded this through a grant, and we used consortium pricing. So a lot of our sister schools, not including Kennesaw State, use this particular platform. And so we got a deal on it by doing consortial pricing. So that's why we went with the DSpace platform. Because we have static URLs and everything, we can actually transfer to a different platform that does have a publishing component if we wish.
Okay, any other questions? Thank you both so much. Okay, Gavin, you want to speak on behalf of the FITC and the space survey?
Yeah, sure. It's finally here. It started with a conversation that Brothers Preston and I had about the idea of hoteling, and I asked Brothers to collect some of these data. I'm sure that many of you have received that survey. I think we had a good response rate, somewhere about 30–35% across the university. And forgive me, I haven't remembered my spectacles. Thing up there. Most people, if the question was, here we go. Sorry. On a scale of 1 to 10, please rate how you feel about faculty workspace utilization, with 1 being I must have a traditional faculty office, and 10 being I am fine without an office and can hotel all the time. And we put in there the description of what the hotel was. Dr. Preston and I worked through that. I'd also like to thank Dr. McLean and Pisani for helping me design it. And most importantly, yet again, I'm sure Mandy Campbell and Brian Roberts run for the hills whenever they see me, because I'm always asking for help, and they always give it to me. But the results, it was overwhelmingly, the hoteling concept was overwhelmingly not supported. About 67% of people said 1, that they must have a traditional faculty office, and then 10% were 2. So it was largely skewed. So that was really the response. If we looked at the qualitative stuff, said some of the things that we would find informally, but now we've got data. I needed my research, I needed a space to see students. Other people have different needs. Psychology, they got people who might be looking at people, talking to people in counseling and that sort of thing. Chemistry might have needs for chemicals and stuff like that, but discipline specific requests notwithstanding, it was not popular. And most people that responded were fulls. So that's really that. And just one thing before I sit down, Baruch's point about grants, fantastic, because I saw him on Monday going to try and relieve the federal government of money and and I was just leaving, having tried to relieve the federal government of a lot more money. So that really is, if you haven't been up there, go and see Brian and Evelyn. It's not even just in the rook, I wish Evelyn was, because they helped me through. I've never applied for money before, but an NIJ grant's unbelievable and they're brilliant. Brian and Evelyn, I can't thank them enough, so I just want to say that. Has anyone got any questions about the survey? Go and see Brian and Evelyn as well, do that. I'm so busy, but anyone got any questions?
I'll provide a comment. I appreciate the dialogue, right? We brought this up a number of months ago. I appreciate hearing that feedback. We're gonna follow up and, again, I wanna restate, there was no plan to say everybody's hoteling, right? Just again, I wanna clarify that. But thank you for those that participated. It's a representative set and we're absolutely taking that under advisement as we make plans. Thank you. Great work. Thank you.
We have Dylan speak on behalf of the scheduling task force. I think you got a report as well.
All right, good afternoon, everyone. So if y'all will recall, early last fall, maybe our second meeting, we elected as a body to ask to slow down some changes that were proposed to our course scheduling, primarily so we can investigate the matter, do some homework. We're really, and so we elected to also create a task force to do some of that homework. That task force took really 3 tracks. One track was to investigate any literature on best practices in course scheduling. A main takeaway there was basically that you have to be really careful with these things, pilot your studies and take baby steps, but there really wasn't a lot out there on it. Another tack would be looked at other institutions, see if other institutions have made similar changes. And we're able to see some models, some institutions have been making more standardizing their course schedules, but there's not a lot out there. Again, you get the sense you gotta be careful. We're only able to find one institution that actually had built in like the campus-wide pause, which was a big feature of the proposals that we discussed last fall. But the really big path of investigation was what are the preferences of our students, right, our consumers on these issues. So we worked closely with the provost's office to institute and disseminate a survey on these issues to our students. And the results are the results are attached in a fairly comprehensive summary report of the results is attached in the survey, in the agenda, I should say. I'm not going to, it's kind of like the syllabus in the first day, I'm not going to read it in detail. There are some very, very clear takeaways. And the first thing I'll say is, if you know anything about survey research, we had a really good response rate, over 10% response rate, so good for a survey like this. Very, very clear patterns of response from our students. The students have very clear preferences on these issues. And when the task force reported these results to SIA as the sort of the originating committee of these requests, SIA felt that we needed to publicize at the very least these results so they become part of the public record, primarily so that any future looks that we take at our course scheduling, these results can really inform and drive any changes that we seek to make. We really need to have an understanding of what exactly our students want when it comes to our schedules, and let that be, maybe not the most important factor, but a very, very significant factor that will drive those changes. So they're here. I'm happy to take any questions on the process or anything you have for me at this time.
I'll also say thank you for this, right? Great work. Like the first day of class on the syllabus, I'm reading while I'm listening. We'll use this and we'll continue to talk across faculty center around what that looks like. Appreciate the work of the group.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dylan. We're going to turn time over to our UPC chair.
UPC has 20 action items that were submitted in the agenda. And I don't think we received any questions yet. Does anybody have any questions about any of these items? So I guess we're ready then to vote. Okay, so all in favor of these 20 proposals, curriculum proposals from UPC, please raise your hand. Okay, and any opposed or any abstaining? Thank you. And we did have two information items that are also attached here, the cornerstone topics for fall and a new set of courses receiving the undergraduate research high impact practice designation.
Thank you so much. It's been a very busy year for undergraduate programs and also for graduate programs with Georgia. So please come and present your business.
Graduate programs also had 20 proposals for consideration with no comments related to those. We had 2 information items as well. Are there any areas for discussion?
You actually had 21. Just to note, that the CISM 5470 was both a new course request and a revised course request. So there are 2 proposals in curriculum for that.
Thank you. Any areas for discussion? Then if you're approve of those particular proposals, 21, you'll raise your hand. Any no's? Any abstentions?
Thank you very much. Before we get to our basically second half business, which is the 2 new colleges and institute progress reports, I do want to note item 8 from the agenda that we're looking at a possible electronic abbreviated Senate meeting for the purpose of some UPC and GPC business that is kind of in the works with Curriculum and will likely come due after this. Well, it'll be definitely after this meeting. So we're likely to need to do some form of meeting to do that, or at least maybe put the items forward for a vote and have you vote electronically. We'll get back to you with details on that, but we tried to have that early enough in May before people are leaving. I think that's actually one of the days of graduation. So hopefully you're able to at least vote and if needed, attend a brief meeting on May 10th. With that said, another thing I want to mention, item 6, we do have 2 nominees for chair-elect for the Senate. We will be presenting nominations in the April 26th general faculty meeting. If you would like to nominate yourself or someone else, we'd love to have as many nominees as there are. We don't want anyone to feel hesitant about that. So please put your name forward and we'll happily contact you, get a nomination statement, and include you in the April 26th business. Other than that, if I can, we'll turn the time over to the provost again to talk about the colleges and institute. And Martin, if you'll help me, we'll hand out some document here for everybody.
Thank you. We've got a number of colleagues that have worked on this group, so let's crowdsource this, right? Let's tag team, and as people have questions and comments, please address them collectively. What you're receiving, again, first day of class, right? This is the syllabus, so please skim and read. That's a good thing, right? We're multitasking beings. Really want to commend these 3 working groups and everyone who has attended the listening sessions and provided input. We have iterated on this a number of times. So if you have an older version of an org chart or listing, please go off of this. And this is a high-level structural discussion. Then we are working specifically. One of the things that came up at Staff Advisory Council when we presented this on Wednesday was, well, where am I landing? And where is my line? Where is my position? We're working with OHR to make sure that everyone has answers to those questions. Since this is Faculty Senate, we'll start by talking about CACSE and the 2 resultant colleges, Arts, Humanities, and Social Sciences, and Mathematics, Computing, and Science. And, or should we say sciences? Maybe there's a symmetry there. That's probably a deep academic debate, right? But you'll see a general summary, certainly listing the working group members on each area. As President Kelly indicated, what we are standing forward July 1 is the beginning. This is not the end. These will evolve and change as we learn more and as we figure things out, just continuous. I'll also clarify that there are two sides to this. One is the naming of the college based on the donation for mathematics, computing, and science. And that requires a board action. So that will come likely in May, possibly June. Look for more information about that. The structure, the academic structure of the institution is the purview of the president. So what we as academic affairs are doing is presenting this to the faculty senate for comment across the next 2 weeks, hopefully sooner than later, right? Let's get some good survey results early. I'll be, the working groups and I will be collecting that and then presenting at the general faculty meeting the result of that and a final recommendation that will be presented to President Kelly for his acceptance and action. And then this will go into effect July 1. I understand that that's over the summer, and change during the summer is problematic because some faculty are off-site, understandably focusing on other things. So I really want to make sure that what we present at that general faculty meeting will have very little change thereafter. So if you see anything that is not that case, please reach out to me. Afford me an opportunity to clarify. There should not be significant change from end of April to when someone returns in August if they're off-site. So again, kudos to the working groups. Great job. One of the things that stands out across all three of these groups is the ability to do interdisciplinary work. We talked about that a bit earlier today. But if you're not in one of these colleges or this institute, I would encourage you to still see how you can connect to them. These are big questions. These are grand areas. And as I mentioned earlier today, for example, computing by itself is just a bunch of ones and zeros that is not very impactful. So connecting these two colleges with your disciplines is absolutely key. The Institute for Mental Health and Wellness, I think we can all contribute, regardless of our discipline, to these big challenges of wellness and mental health. So I hope that you see yourselves in this broadly, and if not, hopefully you'll marinate on this for a bit and discover opportunities to connect through that broader interdisciplinary work. We started with guiding questions for each of these groups. You can see those here. Where do we want to be in 5 years, in 10 years? How can we be a vanguard and continue to be an institution that really drives change and is not teaching what was 20 years ago, but really being on the forefront? You'll see then that each college has clusters of academic areas that they'd like to focus on. And I love that Arts, Humanities, and Social Sciences has probably more clusters and centers than we could ever do in a century, right? So please don't read this as, oh, this is what we're going to have as of July 1. These are what are on the horizon, and we will take these and implement them based on priority and based on potential outcome and based on potential funding. I love that we've got 2 shout outs to working with ORS and increasing that. So if we've got, I mean, the Center for Public History, we clearly have that already. What is that going to be moving forward? Languages, identity, and society. Faculty coming around that not only at AHSS, starting to work on the acronyms, right? The abbreviations here. If I get a little bit wrong, we'll all get there together, right? So the recommendations are that these centers will stand up, these clusters will stand up as we have faculty converging around them. But this is potential. Certainly, we're going to focus on the core educational experiences and applied learning, bridging between disciplines and integrating curricular design with fellows, kind of leading in these. More community outreach, partnership, heard about that today, and the importance of connecting with. Just Wednesday, was it Wednesday this week? We went down to Noonan, Sharmista, and Neil and I talking to a local company there, developing battery technology. So a lot of opportunity for us to connect externally in all of our colleges. The current proposal would have 3 structures within the College of Arts, Humanities, and Social Sciences, not surprisingly, Arts, Humanities, and Social Sciences. And then the academic disciplines falling within. There has been discussion around schools of for each of those rather than departments that would allow us to grow and have joint appointments. I talked with Jeff earlier this week around a lot of our faculty handbook right now is designed around your departmental review, your department chair, a lot of language in that. We will preserve the spirit of that. And you'll see once we land on this, regardless of whether it's a department or school, you will see a letter from me to all faculty saying, part of your annual review, part of your P&T, we will preserve the spirit of that multi-tiered review cycle. So none of that is going away. You're not going to go from your discipline to the provost. We're still going to preserve that. And we'll work on improving the language based on this structure that we decide upon collectively across the next year. But no one's going to get caught in that and be disadvantaged in their P&T and in their annual review process. Shifting to the College of Math, Computing, and Science, you see the working group there, guiding questions, big picture trend. What are we missing? What should we be working on? Who are the exemplars out there? To the students' questions earlier. What are we looking for? Not to say we want to be them, but just for input and comparison. We want to be UWG. We're not chasing R1, R2. So as you see these centers and clusters, I shared this with the Staff Advisory Council on Wednesday. I share it with you. There is no target of Carnegie change. We want to be a Research One institution. We want to be the best regional comprehensive that we can be. If our grant funding grows, if our doctoral program expands, and then our Carnegie classification changes, fantastic. But that's not the goal. The goal is to be great at what we're doing. So you can see the clusters and centers as identified. The student success and experiential learning is squarely focused on improving retention, improving graduation rates, connecting with the Center for Academic Success and other resources in these disciplines. Applied forensics, sustainability, intelligent systems, software, material sciences, and so on. Like AHSS, we're going to focus on those where there's a natural gravity that people are coming around them, that there's funding, external funding coming in. And to the earlier question around funding, again, don't stop asking. We're going to do seed grants and kind of startups because it does take time. It does take effort. It does take some resources to kick these off. So it could be that we identify and say we want to invest some money and some time into these. That could be adjusted workload. It could be stipends to really get these going. The recommendations of the Mathematics, Computing, and Science is to focus in really three major areas. 2 schools that focus on the academic programs. The middle pillar is student success and experiential learning. And then the third would be focused around that external grant, working on the scholarship and the research elements. We're looking to appoint an interim dean effective July 1, and then launch a national search for a dean. It's kind of a chicken and egg. We can't have a dean until we have a college, and you can't have a college until you've got the administrative leadership. But this is a reasonable approach to say we're going to internally define what this college will be, make an appointment, and then do a search shortly thereafter. We're also looking to expand longer term in innovations and external partnership, the VR lab, the makerspace, and provide support so that as these areas expand, we have opportunity to support them. And then certainly centers based on external funding and the gravity around them. The Institute for Mental Health and Wellness is not a center. It's not an academic new college or school. An institute allows us for this to be an umbrella organization. Any faculty across UWG can be a member and contribute to this, but it doesn't change their academic home. So it simplifies P&T and annual review, but it also allows for broad participation. An institute beyond a center under USG policy also is allowed to grant credit. Not that we're coming out of the gates with that, but ultimately the expertise of our faculty in this area would naturally lend us to create best practices that we're sharing nationally. Looking at the National Institute for Student Success out of Georgia State that we've benefited from, they charge for their expertise. And I would imagine that we can do the same in not only this Institute for Mental Health and Wellness, but in other areas, back to that IP policy and the work that you'll be seeing in that very soon. So the vision for this is to really focus on really 3 primary areas. Looking at student athlete health, mental health and wellness, students at academic risk. I'm looking forward to the day when, because of common course components and course den, we're able to automate. And I've shared this before, that Why are we asking people to go through and do a wellness check or do a engagement check? Computers are really great. Student turns something in, they're engaged in the class. Why are you asking me as a faculty member to check off a box and fill out a form? We should be able to turn that around rather quickly, rather than asking people to fill out forms. I'm always about simplification. And then caretakers, let's invest in ourselves and really focus on faculty and staff that are supporting students' well-being. Again, this is an umbrella, a couple of targets that this working group has identified. 10 million in contracts and grants across 5 years. That's incredibly ambitious. I love that. Philanthropic support at $1 million level, and then various initiatives or clusters that might fall out of this. Again, I talked about R1, R2, because when you see this 10 million, that's significant. But this is a space where there is a lot of need, and there is a lot of interest in funding people that can move the needle positively. And I firmly believe that UWG is a place that can do that. And we have a lot of excellence in our faculty that can apply their skills and their strengths to being a national leader in this. So that's the overall. Colleagues that have been working on this, happy to open the floor to questions. And then Jeff, please guide us in the work of the Faculty Senate for the next 30 minutes.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes. Let's go ahead and start with questions, and anyone from the steering groups, you're welcome to chime in to help answer questions as well. So we'll go ahead and start with Farouk.
A comment and a request. It is exciting to have these centers, and it has turned out that sponsored of Dr. Mosier and Ms. Bragg have pointed out to us that a center has ways of reaching not only to federal agencies, but also to employers in the region, so that we can connect our students with more opportunities. So I think that is wonderful. The request that I'm going to make has to do with the number of annual evaluations that our current chair is doing. I'm a former chair, actually of 2 departments. Turns out that Greg, Dr. Payne, does approximately 60 evaluations a year. So if you were to do a single evaluation a day, including weekends, that would knock out 2 entire months from his calendar. And when I was a chair, I could not do an evaluation in a day because I wanted to read all the student evaluations and make that a very introspective process. So my request in a nutshell would be, please reduce the evaluation burden that would fall upon whoever individual is going to do the evaluations in these mega departments. Thank you.
Yeah, good point. That does take a significant amount of time. As a former chair myself, I understand that takes a lot of focus to go through those with diligence, and it's not just a checkbox and quickly skimming. So back to the workload and the humane approach to our work. I'm very mindful of that. Absolutely.
Thank you.
Other questions about any of the 3 entities? Yeah.
The word cluster and center.
Yes.
I know we received reports about the application for a center and so on. Are they, in your view, in the groups, are they synonymous, or is it cluster within a center, or is it?
Yeah, great question. So it's evolutionary, right? You might have a few colleagues come together on a Friday for a brown bag, and then that evolves after a few months. Hey, this really was a great conversation. Let's continue this. And then you say, hey, we've got a cluster of folks that want to work together, right? Center and institute do have formal definitions and expectations. We can be pretty fluid with this, but the intent in creating the ambiguity was that, yes, we will have a center, and centers are responsible for annual financial reporting and outcomes reporting, different than a group of faculty that want to get together and collaborate and then start writing some white papers, perhaps peer-reviewed publications that then evolve into. So I'm really interested in creating flexibility. If we say we have a faculty research cluster in X, then that adds a bit of cachet. That as you're applying for external funding, or if you are inviting someone to talk, you might go to your dean and say, do we have some funding to have someone come and talk on behalf of the faculty research cluster in? Even though you haven't gone through the formal proposal for a center. But it creates a flywheel that gets going. And then once you can point to and say, well, we've had a nationally recognized scholar in this area speak at UWG every year for the past 3 years, and we've been successful in 50K in grants and 150K in grants. Now's the time to form a center and then adjust workload and create a director and create stipends for faculty based on indirects from those scholarship, those grants. So there's a fluidity to it.
So it's like almost an incubator, and then when you have a bit of success in a couple of pubs, that's going to make the center application more likely to succeed and probably easier because you've got more staff population.
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
Great question. Thank you, Gavin. Other questions? Please. About comments? This would be remarkable.
It's
Yeah.
amazing. I'm just reading, I'm like, wow, I wanna be involved in some of these centers.
Great.
I'm like, what,
It's good,
what's sign up? But I hope that, there's very little like in business, so I hope you guys, welcome us business folks into these centers. Because we have a lot of courses that we teach, like in sustainability, culture, all that, and you know, it will be great to share.
I completely agree. First, kudos on your interest, and I'm glad that you're seeing the connections. And in the same way that the Stone Center is really reaching out broadly across the institution, I would say each of these centers should be as broad and inclusive as possible. This is not a AHSS center or cluster. It's a UWG. And even beyond that, if you have colleagues external, you can invite them to be affiliate faculty and work with you. As you know, submitting grants with multiple institutions strengthens the proposal. It broadens the impact. And in the same way that we have colleagues that we work with across different institutions, we should be working across colleges and schools.
Can we bring foreigners, like, foreigners, that sounded so bad, international scholars? Because I have several connections who would love to work on this.
I love the phrase that we bring UWG to the world and we bring the world to UWG.
Yes, yes.
So the short answer is emphatically yes.
Yes.
That if you have an invited scholar, funding that, connecting with, I'm sure we've each experienced that. You have someone come to campus, they give a talk, and then new ideas are created from that, new connections. So it might be that you have a colleague that you've worked with in the past, you're connected with them, you bring them here, and then they meet 10 or 12 other people, but then that just takes off and snowballs from there.
One coming next week. And these topics are so interesting for so many different people, and for instance, in Europe, you can get funding to come to US. So you just give them a table somewhere to work.
We do that regularly, and let's spend other people's money first, yes. But we do also have an opportunity, this is prioritization. And if we can turn $2,000 of sponsorship to have someone visit into $20,000 or $200,000 worth of funding because of that collaboration, that's not gonna happen every time, right? Sometimes you're gonna invest and it's just the experience you create, and that's great. And sometimes we're gonna try something and it's, it doesn't pay off, okay. But we try 10 things, if we can hit on 3, we're meeting Silicon Valley's right.
If I come, do I count? Well, I'm a foreigner.
No, we don't count, we don't count.
You can give some grants to organize that.
Your passport, all that.
That's right.
But you have a lot of funding for these, the topics like the digitalization, and they're doing great research on it. I think it would be great collaboration.
Yeah, I'm gonna pass it back to the working groups that have been on this. The result that you see here, for my part, yes, I've been talking with, but this is largely cut and paste. So shout out to the working groups, because the interesting collaborations, the clusters, the centers you see are what faculty have identified as the most important in these areas. And they really started with and said, these are the things we want to focus on. It's a grassroots, as it should be. They're saying these are the things in our disciplines that matter and where we want to spend our time. This will also help inform the faculty that we're hiring. Because in these colleges, if someone says, yeah, that's great, but I'm not really interested in that, I'd rather do this thing over here. I hope that you listen to that, because if this is what the college is identifying as what they are most focused upon, We need people directing in that way. That doesn't mean that this is exclusive and you can't have others contributing in different things, but be mindful of that as we're expanding and hiring.
So the concept of clusters, and this is quite possibly for the working groups to answer. What research or investigation has been done around the term clusters and current institutions using that term? And that model and their successes or challenges that they've experienced by saying we have a cluster or we've defined it in a certain way. Was that interesting?
Okay, so I'm Sharmista, and I was part of the math, the computing math and sciences task force. Great question, Jason. Now, in the sciences, interdisciplinarity is a big thing, right? So in order for us to maximize on resources, on limited resources, the only way that you can move forward is by collaboration, by having this cluster model. Now, all of us came from institutions, research universities, where a lot of the sciences are all housed in the same building, right? So unfortunately, on our campus, especially for the sciences, previously we were in 4 different buildings. Now we've kind of consolidated a little bit and we are on 3 different buildings on 3 different sides of campus, right? So a lot of our faculty have been at West Georgia 27 years. So we do fantastic work in the sciences, but we do it in silos. So a lot of times there are instrumentation that sit in chemistry that is underutilized, that otherwise a geochemist or a biochemist in biology or a geochemist in geology could have made good use of. So up to this point, I think that was one of the things that when we were doing our focus groups, when we did our survey for the faculty, more and more of them kept saying that if we can have some core instrumentation that everyone can share, that we have these opportunities to know what other people are doing and see how we can complement or supplement the existing expertise, we can become a bigger and a better college. So that is how the idea, so it's something that really is not very common in comprehensive universities such as us, but if you go to Georgia Tech, right? So you have the material science people all sitting in one building. And you have mechanical engineers, you have chemists, you have physicists, you have geologists all working together on materials together. We cannot do that here, but this is the best we could do in terms of anthropology, right? They use so much scientific instrumentation, but they are sitting either in the Baffle lab or they sit in the Waring lab. But we can collaborate as chemists, as biologists with both those groups. So we envision when we did our focus groups, people from anthropology, people from business came to our focus groups and expressed some of the interests of how these collaborations can happen. So that is pretty much what guided us to get into this cluster model. So we tested out, I think we have enough interest from around campus where we are not going to, our college won't impose it on the other colleges, but based on our surveys, based on our focus groups, we have seen enough interest where we think that if we have the communication flowing, this model will evolve into something that's more substantial.
Yeah.
It's probably a very long answer to your short question.
Well, I'm also curious in terms of looking at comparable institutions that have tried clusters and perhaps it's the concept of using them as part of a pre-mortem. So the concept of the pre-mortem, we have an idea we're going to do something, but let's look at everything that could go wrong first to help us overcome the challenges that potentially come to us. And I was just curious at the working groups when the discussion of interdisciplinarity, whether called clusters or something else, came up, that there was investigations or looking at successes and challenges that have come up, may exist at other comparable institutions, even outside of Georgia, that are like us, a regional comprehensive, to help, physicality is a challenge.
Mm-hmm.
So, physical space, spread out instrumentation, we're in, 2 sides of campus. But if the working group so far have learned anything from looking at pre-existing models to give ideas to overcome the challenges that are already presenting themselves. For example, the physical separation. I mean, did any of that, did you all kind of, or is that yet to come?
For us, it's yet to come, but I see no problems. It can only get better. If we have shared instrumentation, if we know of what's available on campus, which at this point, again, we are very, very siloed, you know, and again, just from, I'll give you some simple examples, okay? So just bringing the physics folks over from Boyd into the TLC and having the chemists and the physicists collaborate in this. We have a tiny lab and we call it the material science lab. We have brought over instrumentation from Boyd into that space. And now we have a group of 5 or 6 faculty members who are collaborating on projects together already, right? 20 years ago, Farooq and Swami collaborated. We were in 2 different buildings, one in biology, the other one in the TLC. But that collaboration brought in an instrument that was widely used by chemistry and physics, chemistry and biology students. So we have anecdotal evidence that these collaborations between disciplines have led to successful student experiences as well as faculty advancement. And that is what we are using as our starting point and saying now we want to extend it. We want art, we want the artists to come to our material science lab because everything artists do is all about materials. So what we want to do is our students no longer care for mixing chemicals in a test tube, okay? But if they can go and study the chemistry of glazing or whatever, and we bring in the scanning electron microscope to see how the grains or whatever the glaze gets distributed in a pottery, that is something that's an enhanced experience for everyone. Does that make sense? So we want to bring art into material science instead of those traditional fields saying physics and chemistry can collaborate.
Yeah, no, it totally makes sense. It was just really, the question was really centering on like looking outward at pre-existing cluster models and challenges and successes they encounter and how we can learn from them to do what we might already be doing or what we hope and anticipate to do in the future better so that we don't fall into the challenges that they might have accepted with a giant aspiration of interdisciplinarity that's sort of non-formalized at the beginning. So it was just really about.
Yeah.
Can I talk by a second?
Yeah, I'll be doing that.
I think one real example, we have an ad out there for a joint appointment, hopefully between physics and chemistry programs. That the idea is that we would hire a person with a PhD in physics who could teach upper level chemistry courses or vice versa. And there is so much common between experimental physics and experimental chemistry these days, especially in the area of materials, so that we can have a couple of individuals who are practically indistinguishable. We could have a chemical physicist or a physical chemist, and there is so much overlap that they are practically indistinguishable. So that is just one example. There are analogs of that between chemistry and biology. At many major universities, you have departments of chemistry and chemical biology. And so Dr. Mitra was talking about that. So that is another idea that we could explore in future as well.
Okay, cool. Let me just jump in here. I've been on all 3 of these steering groups. It's been really fascinating to see how this is all bubbled up from the faculty. But the steering group's task includes, but hasn't yet really moved into looking at the operation of these things. And then, of course, examples from other institutions, if they exist, to the extent they exist. So this is, at this point, the grassroots are growing really from within us. I think clusters is a nice broad term that can include everything from a research lab that someone's doing to 3 people who get together and say, hey, we really want to look at, psychotherapy with incarcerated, people and, whatever it might be. And so you have a lot of flexibility, as the provost was saying, not just for evolution, but to try something. And then if it doesn't, seem like you want to keep with it or it wants to stay at just the level of 3 people working together, that can also be supported through the institute or the colleges. But that step now of how do we look at this going forward in ways that will be really effective is to be done. Also, clusters, by the way, and centers don't have to be limited to faculty and academics. We've got community partners, we've got people in our region who we can include in the work of a cluster or a center. So they're broad intentionally. From what we gather from the faculty, that is what seems to be really desired as a through thread through all 3 of these. And then, of course, the work you're describing, how do we operationalize this successfully? That's the phase that probably CMCS is a little closer on, but all of these are going to need to move into as we go forward.
So my question is probably past months too early, let's say.
I think it's a great question.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right, let's look out at what others have done, let's not repeat mistakes.
Absolutely.
But let's also be brought up to say, well, maybe that didn't work here, but okay, we see the pitfalls and we're gonna do it slightly different. It's really about flexibility. You know,
Yeah,
call it whatever you'd like, it doesn't have to be
Also-
cluster.
just say, we did look at some institutions that you could find, go out there and Google clusters and that kind of concept.
Did you say Google clusters? Google, okay, we're in Georgia, we gotta say.
Pardon my.
I'm giving away, I didn't have lunch, so I'm.
Southern accent, you know. Institutions like Dartmouth and like North Carolina State, these are larger research institutions that had them. But I mean, we didn't look into like challenges that they may have run into, but did find, at least from what I could see, the institutions that had these seem to have a wide variety of them and that they're active and successful. It's because the institution has decided that that's important, that's the path we want to pursue. So it's not just sort of ideas that we want to play around with, but it came from the institution. We're going to support this. We're going to hire faculty into these areas specifically.
No, this is great. All the responses are really awesome. So I really do appreciate it. Yeah, this is great. Thank you.
It's great to point us towards that, and I appreciate you doing that. Gavin?
Jason, thanks for that point. Just very quickly, I suppose, as the provost described what a cluster is, you've already sort of beta tested many of the centres to see what could go wrong, and then sort of general saying, okay, that didn't work out, so what happens next time? So I'd like, and I know some centres are good feel right off the bat, but the idea of a cluster, what do we need to do, what do we need not to do, I think is sort of a safety thing too. I guess, I don't know, I went to know what cluster is.
It's a lot less paperwork as well. Yeah, you could just do a cluster and boom, it's here, you know?
You might just be nervous about cluster because it's sometimes coupled with another word that means things go bad. So, I mean, cluster cuss from Fantastic Mr. Fox, that's what my children call it, cluster.
I'll be honest, I was involved in clusters at a different institution. And it went bad.
That second word applied, okay. So we can use a different term if that association is a little traumatic.
Little Trump.
Okay,
Yeah.
call it whatever you like. Really, we're looking for, we're trying to create space for people to come together and do cool things. So,
Yeah.
we can put fancy language.
At the
around
level
it.
they want to do it, that's the thing. And maybe you don't want to go to a center level, don't make an application.
No,
And you
totally.
stay at that level of
Yeah.
lab work or something else, so.
Yeah, the old institution tried to formalize it.
Yeah.
Didn't quite work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Greg?
Yeah, I was just gonna interject here. I think the idea of cluster, I like that in incubation group kind of thing, that whole idea that Dr. Preston threw out. I think there's an opportunity here with cluster to incentivize those groups to get together and come to ideas. And I guess that's up to Dr. Preston for that.
That's that resource advocacy, right? I mean, you get what you invest in,
Yeah,
right?
if
So
if you
you,
have a group with a good idea, there's an opportunity there to go negotiate workloads, incentivization, seed grants, those kind of things should help support.
and I'm gonna put Brian on the spot, but our internal seed grants are exactly for that. We've got a group of people doing cool things, we wanna take it to the next level, or maybe we've got a great idea. And we wanna start getting some preliminary results that are gonna bloom into bigger things, so. That's absolutely the ecosystem we're trying to create.
Jason, you got a question, I know. So.
Oh, yeah, please.
Actually, a comment here, regarding the centers, the institution clusters, have you ever thought about kind of defining those things more operationally and kind of
noting what other requirements the road responsibility, any guideline about it. So in the long run, if we have good fixation, somebody will have sometime we want to set up a center, then maybe help. Yeah, great question. I'm going to point to Brian, who can absolutely answer that. And then if you would, please follow up, providing for the record, the Faculty Senate record, a link to the Center Institute proposals.
Sure. Thank you. So, last Faculty Senate, there was a document and it's linked to the Faculty Senate. Happy to send that link again. And it is about how to establish a center on or an institute on campus. There's an opportunity to still get feedback that will actually go through the policy staff. But welcome any conversations with that. We did have a chance to pilot that and got some great feedback from what will be the new College of Science, Mathematics, Computing. I don't know if I got the acronym right.
Mathematics, Computing, and Science. CMCS, it just rolls off the tongue.
Or sciences. So that's absolutely in the works. Not one for clusters, but many of the centers that have come about on this campus have been from some type of cluster or RPH. So happy to connect you.
Yeah, thank you, Brian.
Great question.
Yeah, please use the minutes to link to that center form so you can see all of the specifics of it, because it really does lay out what a center needs to have and expect in terms of outcomes. So it's very helpful.
But even before that form, I think we've heard from a couple people. Just go talk with Brian. He'll absolutely support you. Yeah, your calendar just got all filled.
We're ready.
Other questions or comments, including from the steering group on any aspect of our work? Steering groups, I should say. Okay.
I'll conclude with 2 final points then. Number 1, thank you for the working groups. They've done a fantastic job. And 2, this is open comment. So if you have an epiphany tomorrow morning or a week from now, please reach out to the names that you see on the list or myself. We'll incorporate all of that and have a more detailed presentation at the general faculty meeting. Thanks for the time today, folks. Thank you.
Thank you. Let me just say on the last point about clusters, collaboration, task forces, whatever you want to name it. We as a Senate this year really have practiced some of this already. And I want to say, especially given the IP's presentation, the IP task force presentation, when you bring people together around a common challenge or around some ideas, you don't know what's going to come. And I've just been so impressed with what has come out of the work of the Senate this year in terms of our committees, the task forces. Some of it I anticipated, maybe hoped for, some of it I did not and was surprised by, and beautifully so. So I am, as some of you know, a relational psychologist. I believe that the relationship itself has its own qualities and properties, and out of those relationships we are a part of, things can blossom and grow. And when I think about these colleges, the Institute, and our own Senate work, and hopefully the university at large, the relationships we engage in and our willingness to engage is necessary for that. But those relationships I'm getting attacked by I'm having a relationship with a fly right now. We even got a pair of chopsticks. I need a pair of chopsticks. You know? Okay, little Mr. Miyagi humor. Okay. But the relationships that we can engage in, and we have to engage with our full selves, all of our expertise, all of our experience, all of our training. You know, we are idea people. We have great ideas and we are very good at studying and researching them. If we can bring that together without being shy or hesitant for other reasons, I think these colleges and the Institute have as much chance of success as I've witnessed our Senate having this year and more. So my encouragement to you is I will thank you for an incredible year of work. I know how hard so many of you have worked. I don't know how hard some of the others of you have worked because you haven't told me, but I know how many of you have worked very, very hard this year. And I want to thank you for that effort. I really do appreciate you working very hard on behalf of the shared governance we are involved in. But I also want to say, looking forward, the brightness of hope in what we can achieve together really does depend on your efforts, your willingness to engage. I've experienced that as faculty senate chair, by my willingness to engage with our administration, by my willingness to engage faculty and others, including students who come to talk to us about their concerns. I've seen just wonderful fruit be produced from that kind of collaborative effort, even if it's not always comfortable or easy. So please, looking forward, do know that our success in these institutional entities, the colleges and institute, depend on us. And I know that we need help, and I know we need our work to be channeled through, opportunities and possibilities that are conducive to our success, but our energy and engagement really does make a difference. And I am encouraged by what I know of the faculty in this room and beyond. So thank you for a great year. I look forward to not having a fly in my face after I close. But I look forward to our next year. I will be in the role, of course, of former Senate chair and will support the incoming Senate chair with all my effort. But I'm just very grateful to have worked with you for the last 2 years. So thank you, everybody. And I applaud you. So I'm going to give you a clap. You better clap with me because it'll be weird if I'm just clapping by myself. With that said, is there anything else from you, Laura? Anything else? Okay, we're going to go ahead and adjourn. Oh, Farouk, of course, with the pen. You're a wise man. My children beat you to that a long time ago.
Proud senator representing chemistry now for the third year.
Yes.
I work very closely with you and Madam Secretary, Dr. Wolf, when I was the chair of the FDC. And I want to compliment the two of you for handling turbulence that was a necessary part of the faculty development committee's work very well. And we accomplished a great deal. And I think your ability to bring ideas together and to sort through the difficulties that might otherwise blow up were outstanding. And I'm going to rotate off, and this is not kind of a farewell speech like Mitch McConnell's, but the idea here would be to say that this group has done an enormous amount of work. And I want to thank the two of you for leading these efforts.
Thank you very much. Thank you. And thank you to Laura so much for your work. My goodness, it's been incredible. Well, let's adjourn, shall we? Thank you, everybody.